Welcome! If you are coming across my channel for the first time, please like and subscribe for encouragement. Love you all so much. Now let's get into the story of the day. After my husband's funeral, my sister claimed she was pregnant with his baby, and she asked for the house. The funeral home smelled like lilies and furniture polish. I remember that specifically because I focused on it instead of looking at the casket. My husband, Daniel Chen, was in that box, wearing the navy suit I picked out, and I couldn't make myself look at him one more time. I'd already said goodbye at the hospital when the machines stopped beeping. This part, the public part with the strangers and distant relatives, this was just theater. My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm 29 years old. I work as a billing coordinator at a dental practice in Plymouth, Minnesota, which means I spend my days calling insurance companies and arguing about codes. It's boring work, but it's stable. And after Daniel's landscaping business had 2 slow winters in a row, stable mattered. Daniel died on a Tuesday. Aneurysm. He was loading mulch bags into his truck at the supplier in Maple Grove, and he just collapsed. The owner found him 20 minutes later. By the time I got to the hospital, he was already gone. No warning, no goodbye, no last conversation. Just a phone call that started with, "Mrs. Chen, I'm afraid there's been an incident." He was 31 years old. We'd been married for 6 years. We bought our house in Brooklyn Park for $287,000 3 years ago, a little rambler with a garage Daniel converted into a workshop. My dad insisted the deed go in my name only. He'd been through a messy divorce with my mom when I was 16, and he didn't trust anyone after that. Daniel didn't even flinch when the title company explained it. He said, "Makes sense. Your dad's money, your name." My father had given us $180,000 for the down payment. He sold his rental property in St. Paul to do it. The repast was at my mother's house in Richfield. She'd insisted on hosting, even though she and my dad hadn't spoken directly in 13 years. They communicated through me and my sister, which should have been my first clue that my family was a disaster waiting to happen. About 30 people showed up. Daniel's mom flew in from California. His brother drove up from Iowa City. My Aunt Susan brought a casserole that nobody touched. People stood around the living room holding paper plates and making small talk about traffic and the weather, because nobody knows what to say when a 31-year-old drops dead. I was sitting on the couch next to Daniel's mom, Linda. She was holding my hand and crying quietly. She'd been crying on and off for 4 days straight. I wasn't crying. I couldn't anymore. I'd cried so much in the hospital that I physically ran out of tears. My eyes just hurt and my head pounded, and I felt like I was watching everything through a dirty window. That's when my sister stood up. Her name is Vanessa. She's 26, 3 years younger than me. She's a receptionist at a dermatology clinic in Edina. She's always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one my mother called a free spirit when she dropped out of college after 1 semester. She was wearing a black dress that was slightly too tight and heels that clicked on my mother's hardwood floors. She walked to the center of the room holding a champagne flute. My mother had put out champagne for some reason, like this was a celebration. Vanessa tapped a knife against the glass. The sound cut through the conversations. Everyone stopped talking. "I have something to say," Vanessa announced. Her voice was steady. Too steady. She wasn't nervous. She'd rehearsed this. I thought she was going to do a toast to Daniel, say something nice about how he always helped her move apartments or fixed her car for free. Instead, she said, "I'm pregnant." A couple people smiled. My Aunt Susan said, "Oh, honey." "And the baby is Daniel's," Vanessa finished. The room went completely silent. Not the polite kind of silence. The kind where everyone stops breathing at the same time. My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. Linda's hand went rigid in mine. I stared at my sister. She was looking directly at me. Her expression was neutral, almost blank, like she'd just announced the weather. "I'm 12 weeks along," she continued. "Daniel and I were together for almost 5 months. He promised me that when the baby came, the house would go to his child." She reached into her purse and pulled out 2 pieces of paper. I have the sonogram and his updated will. He wanted to make sure his baby was taken care of. She handed the sonogram to my Aunt Susan, who looked at it like it might explode. Then Vanessa held up the second paper, stapled and official-looking. "This is Daniel's will," she said, "dated 3 months ago. It states that his primary asset, the house in Brooklyn Park, should go to his biological child." Linda made a sound. Not a word, just a sound, like someone had punched her in the stomach. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My brain was trying to process what I'd just heard, but the words wouldn't arrange themselves into anything that made sense. Vanessa looked at me again. "You knew," she said quietly. "Daniel told me you knew." Every single person in that room turned to look at me. 30 pairs of eyes, some confused, some shocked, some already forming opinions. My mother stood up. "Rebecca." "I didn't know," I said. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. This isn't." "He told me you'd deny it," Vanessa said. She sounded sad now, like she felt sorry for me. "He said you'd be upset because you couldn't have kids." That part was true. We'd tried for 2 years. 3 rounds of IVF, all failed. We'd been saving up for adoption paperwork when Daniel died, but I'd never told Vanessa about the IVF. I'd only told my mother. Daniel's brother stood up. "This is insane. Daniel wouldn't—" "Wouldn't what?" Vanessa interrupted. "Wouldn't fall in love? Wouldn't want to be a father? I have proof." She held up the papers again. "This is legal. This is real." I stood up. The room tilted slightly. I realized I hadn't eaten anything in 48 hours. "This isn't real," I said. We didn't." "I'm sorry this is hard for you," Vanessa said. She actually sounded sincere. "But I have to think about the baby now. Daniel would have wanted that." I walked out. I didn't run. I just walked through my mother's kitchen, out the back door, and sat down on the concrete steps in the backyard. I could hear raised voices inside. Daniel's brother was yelling. My mother was crying. Someone slammed a door. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes before my mother came out. She sat down next to me. Didn't say anything at first. Just sat there with her hands folded in her lap. Finally, she said, "If there's a baby, we have to think about what's fair." I turned to look at her. "Fair? I'm not saying I believe—" She stopped, started again. "I'm just saying that if there is a baby, and if it is Daniel's, then legally, that child might have rights." "Mom, Daniel and I were married. We were together every day. When exactly was he supposed to be sleeping with my sister?" "I don't know, honey, but she has a sonogram. And she says she has a will." "His will leaves everything to me. I have the real will, from the attorney in Minnetonka." My mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "But if he updated it—" "He didn't." "How do you know?" I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. I hadn't looked at the will since we signed it 2 years ago. What if Daniel had updated it? What if there was something I didn't know about? My mother patted my knee. Let's get through the next few days. Then we'll figure this out like adults." She went back inside. I stayed on the steps until it got dark. That night, back at the house, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Everything felt wrong. The bed was too big, the room was too quiet, and my brain kept replaying what Vanessa had said. "You knew." I hadn't known. There was nothing to know. Daniel wasn't cheating. Daniel definitely wasn't cheating with my sister. That was insane. But then why would she say it? Why would she lie at a funeral in front of everyone we knew, unless she actually believed it was true? Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "I know this is hard, but we need to discuss logistics. The house should be transferred before the baby comes. Can we meet this week?" I stared at that text for a full minute. Transferred. Like my house was a car title. Like my husband's death was a bureaucratic inconvenience. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and buried it under the pillow. The next morning, I called my dad. He lives in Duluth now with his second wife, Karen. They run a small engine repair shop. He answered on the first ring. Becca. I heard. I'm so sorry. Did you hear what Vanessa said? Pause. Your mother called me. Yeah, I heard. It's not true. I know it's not true. How do you know? Because I know Daniel and I know Vanessa. He sighed. Look, your sister has always been creative. Remember when she told everyone in high school that she had a modeling contract in New York? That was different. She was 17. Mm-hmm. And remember when she borrowed $4,000 from Mom for business school and then used it to go to Cancun with her boyfriend? I'd forgotten about that. What I'm saying is, Vanessa makes up stories when she needs something. The question is, what does she need now? She says she needs the house. Why? For Daniel's baby. Right. And you believe there's a baby? She showed everyone a sonogram. Sonograms can be faked, bought online. Hell, she could have gotten one from a patient at her clinic. I hadn't thought of that. Here's what you do, my dad said. Don't engage. Don't argue with her. Don't defend yourself. Just get a lawyer, today. Get the real will out of wherever Daniel kept it, and get a lawyer. She says she has a will, too, from Daniel. Then her lawyer and your lawyer can figure out which one's real. But Becca? The house is in your name. I made sure of that. She can't just take it. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table and thought about what he'd said. The house was in my name. Solely. Vanessa couldn't just claim it. Could she? I opened my laptop and started Googling. Can someone contest a house deed? Rights of biological children in estates? How to prove paternity after death? The more I read, the more anxious I got. Because apparently, if Vanessa could prove the baby was Daniel's, there were scenarios where a biological child could have inheritance rights, even if the house was in my name. But Daniel couldn't be the father. That wasn't possible. And then I remembered something. 3 years ago, Daniel had a vasectomy. We decided after the second failed IVF that we couldn't afford more treatments, and we couldn't emotionally handle another loss. Daniel said he didn't want to keep putting me through it. So he got a vasectomy. I drove him to the urologist in St. Louis Park. I picked up his prescription. I bought him ice packs and made him stay on the couch for 3 days while he complained that he felt like he'd been kicked by a horse. 6 weeks later, he went back for the follow-up test. Sperm count, 0. Permanent, irreversible. While Vanessa claimed she was 12 weeks pregnant. That meant conception happened roughly 10 weeks ago. 2.5 months. Daniel had been sterile for 3 years. The math didn't just look wrong. The math was impossible. I sat back in the chair. My heart was pounding. Not from panic, from something else. Clarity, maybe, or rage. I wasn't sure yet. Vanessa wasn't pregnant with Daniel's baby. Vanessa was lying. But why? Why make up something so insane, so public, so easily disprovable? I thought about my dad's question. What does she need? Money. Vanessa always needed money. She'd been evicted from 2 apartments in the last 3 years. She'd totaled her car and couldn't afford a new one. My mother had been paying her car insurance for the last 6 months. But this wasn't about borrowing $500. This was about a $287,000 house. I got up and walked to the bedroom. Daniel's side of the closet still smelled like his cologne. I pulled the step stool over and reached up to the top shelf where we kept the fireproof safe. It was heavy, steel, the kind you buy at Costco. The combination was our anniversary date, June 14th. I carried it to the bed and opened it. Inside was our marriage certificate, my birth certificate, Daniel's passport, the title to his truck, some savings bonds his grandmother had left him, and a large manila envelope from the law office in Minnetonka. I pulled out the envelope and opened it. Inside was Daniel's will, the real one. Signed by Daniel, witnessed by 2 paralegals at the law firm, notarized by someone named Patricia Howell, dated 2 years ago, right after we bought the house. The language was simple. Everything goes to Rebecca Chen, my spouse. If I predecease Rebecca, Everything goes to Rebecca. If we both die at the same time, everything goes to Daniel's brother in Iowa. No mention of children, no contingencies, no updates. I sat there holding that document, and I felt something click into place. Not relief. Something colder. Vanessa had a forged will. She had to. Because this will, the real one, left her nothing. I kept digging through the safe. Underneath the will was a folder from the urologist's office. Inside was all the paperwork from Daniel's vasectomy, the consent forms, the discharge instructions, the lab results from the follow-up test. I pulled out the lab results and read them again, just to be sure. Semen analysis. No sperm detected. Patient is sterile. Effective immediately. Dated November 2022. 3 years ago. I took a photo of the lab results with my phone. Then I took a photo of the will. Then I put everything back in the safe except the will. That I put in my purse. Then I called an attorney. The law firm my dad recommended was in downtown Minneapolis, 15th floor of an office building with a view of the Mississippi River. The attorney's name was Monica Tran. She was probably in her mid-40s, black suit, practical heels, reading glasses on a chain. She looked like someone who didn't have time for nonsense. I sat across from her desk and told her everything. The funeral, the announcement, the sonogram, the fake will, the vasectomy, the impossible timeline. Monica listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took off her glasses and leaned back in her chair. "Okay," she said. "So your sister is either delusional or running a scam." "I think it's a scam." "I think you're right. But here's the thing. If she believes the baby is Daniel's, if there's even a 1% chance she's genuinely confused, then this is a family tragedy. But if she knows the baby isn't Daniel's and she's doing this anyway, that's fraud. And if she files that forged will in probate court, that's a felony." She said she was going to file it. Has she filed it yet? I don't know. How do I check? I'll check. But here's what I need you to understand. If she files a fraudulent will in probate court, the state will prosecute her. Not you, the state. Because lying to a court is a crime. But if you confront her before she files it, she'll pull back, delete the evidence, and walk away. And you'll never prove what she tried to do. I stared at her. So you want me to let her file it? I want her to commit a crime on the record, because right now, she's just a woman with a story and a piece of paper. But the second she submits that forged will to the court, she's a criminal defendant. What if the court believes her? They won't, because we'll submit Daniel's real will, the vasectomy records, and a request for mandatory paternity testing. The second the court sees the medical records, her case collapses. But by then, she's already committed fraud. I thought about that. So I just, wait. You stay quiet. Don't argue with her. Don't defend yourself. Don't post anything on social media. Let her think she's winning. And when she files, see, we'll dismantle her story piece by piece. I left that office feeling something I hadn't felt since Daniel died. Control. For a week, I didn't answer Vanessa's texts. She sent 6 of them, each one more impatient. We need to talk about the transfer. I've spoken to a lawyer. This needs to happen before the baby comes. You're being selfish. Think about Daniel's child. I didn't respond to any of them. My mother called. Vanessa says you're not cooperating. Cooperating with what? With working this out. There's nothing to work out, Mom. The house is mine. The will is mine. She's lying. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? I almost told her about the vasectomy, but Monica had been clear. Don't show your hand. I just know, I said. My mother sighed. Vanessa's coming over tomorrow. Maybe the 3 of us can sit down and talk like adults. I'm not doing that. Rebecca. Mom, I'm not sitting down with the woman who stood up at Daniel's funeral and accused him of cheating on me. If she wants to talk, she can talk to my lawyer. I hung up. The next day, my mother called again. She was crying. Vanessa's scared. She's a single mother with no support. She's just trying to do what's right for the baby. Then she should tell the truth about who the father is. She did tell the truth. The father is Daniel. No, Mom, it's not. How can you be so sure? Because Daniel had a vasectomy 3 years ago. Silence. Then my mother said, very quietly, "What?" He was sterile. Medically, permanently sterile. I have the lab results. Vanessa is either lying or she's confused about who the father is. But it's not Daniel. My mother didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "Vanessa doesn't know that." "No, she doesn't. You need to tell her." "No, I don't. Rebecca." She stood up at Daniel's funeral and called him a cheater. She tried to take my house. She forged a will. I don't owe her anything. My mother's voice got sharp. "She's your sister." She stopped being my sister when she decided to use my dead husband for a con. I hung up again. That afternoon, I got a notification from Monica. Vanessa had filed the will in probate court. She was officially claiming Daniel's estate. She'd listed herself as beneficiary on behalf of the unborn biological child of Daniel Chen. It was done. She'd walked into the trap. The probate hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, Monica filed a response. She submitted Daniel's real will, requested the court reject Vanessa's fraudulent document, and demanded a court-ordered DNA test after the baby was born. Then she submitted the vasectomy records. I didn't hear anything from Vanessa for 2 days. Then she called me. Not texted. Called. I answered. "You had no right to submit his medical records," she said. Her voice was shaking. "Those are my husband's records. I have every right." A vasectomy doesn't mean people can still. No, Vanessa, they can't. The follow-up test confirmed 0 sperm count. He was sterile. Completely. Silence. "So either you're lying," I continued, "or you genuinely don't know who the father is. Either way, it's not Daniel." "You're wrong." "Then take the DNA test." "I don't need to take a DNA test. I know." "Great. Then it'll confirm what you already know. And you'll have legal proof. Win-win." She hung up. An hour later, my mother called. "What did you say to your sister?" "The truth." "She's hysterical. She's saying you're trying to humiliate her." "I'm not doing anything, Mom. She's the one who filed a fraudulent legal document. She did this to herself. She made a mistake." "She didn't make a mistake. She lied. At a funeral. In front of 30 people. She forged a will. And she tried to steal my house. That's not a mistake. That's fraud." My mother was quiet. Then she said, "If you push this, she could go to jail." "I'm not pushing anything. The court is. She filed a fake will. That's a felony." "She's your sister." "Then maybe she should have thought about that before she did this." I hung up. The probate hearing was held in a small courtroom in Hennepin County. Fluorescent lights. Beige walls. A judge who looked tired. Vanessa showed up with a public defender. She'd clearly expected a different kind of fight. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to cry, or beg, or apologize. I just sat there. Monica presented everything methodically. Daniel's real will, drafted by a licensed attorney, signed and witnessed. Then the vasectomy records. Then the timeline showing conception occurred 3 years after the vasectomy confirmed sterility. The judge read the medical records twice. Vanessa's lawyer tried to argue that vasectomies can reverse spontaneously. Monica pulled out a medical journal article showing the statistical probability, less than 0.03%. Then she pulled out Daniel's 6-month follow-up test. Still sterile. The judge looked at Vanessa. "Ms. Harding, what did you know about the vasectomy?" Vanessa's lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "And you're certain the child you're carrying is Daniel Chen's?" Pause. "Yes." "Then you'll consent to DNA testing after the birth?" Her lawyer whispered again. Longer this time. "Yes," Vanessa said. She sounded like she was about to cry. Monica then presented the forensic analysis of the forged will. The signature had been copied from a birthday card. The notary whose stamp appeared on the document had filed an affidavit saying he'd never notarized anything for Daniel Chen or Vanessa Harding. The document was dated 4 months ago, but the birthday card Daniel had signed was from 3 months ago. The will claims to have been signed before the signature existed, Monica said. The judge took off his glasses. Ms. Harding, do you understand that submitting a fraudulent document to this court is a criminal offense? Vanessa started crying. Not delicate tears. Full, shoulder-shaking sobs. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered urgently. She shook her head. He whispered again. Finally, she looked at the judge and said, I made a mistake. You forged a will. I didn't think. You submitted a forged testamentary document to probate court. That's a Class C felony in Minnesota. Vanessa put her head in her hands. The judge dismissed her claim. Then he said the case was being referred to the county attorney's office for criminal investigation. The hearing lasted 22 minutes. Vanessa left the courtroom without looking at me. My mother, who'd been sitting in the back row, followed her out. Monica turned to me. You okay? I nodded. So this isn't over. The DA will likely offer her a plea deal. Probation, probably. Restitution. But she's done. Legally, she has no claim to anything. I sat in that courtroom for a few more minutes after everyone left. Just sitting. Breathing. Daniel wasn't here to see this. He'd never know what Vanessa tried to do. But somehow, in the weirdest way, he'd protected me anyway. By getting a vasectomy. By making a will. By writing everything down. That night, I drove past the cemetery where Daniel was buried. I didn't stop. I just drove past, windows down, and I thought about the fact that I was still here. Still alive. Still fighting. The house was mine. The life we built was mine. And no one, not my sister, not my mother, not anyone, was going to take that from me. 2 weeks later, Vanessa accepted a plea deal. Probation. A criminal record. Court-ordered restitution of $8,500 to cover my legal fees. The felony charge was reduced to a gross misdemeanor in exchange for her cooperation. The DNA test was never done, because a week after the hearing, Vanessa's story fell apart completely. A man named Eric Lindstrom contacted Monica's office. He was a personal trainer at the gym where Vanessa worked out. He said he'd been in a casual relationship with Vanessa for about 8 months. When he saw the court filing in the public records, he did the math. The timeline matched. Eric took a paternity test voluntarily. He was the father. He was also married. His wife filed for divorce 3 days later. Vanessa didn't contest it. She just disappeared. Deleted her social media. Stopped answering calls. Moved to somewhere in Wisconsin, according to my mother. My mother tried to apologize. She sent me a letter. 4 pages, handwritten. She said she'd been desperate to believe there was still a piece of Daniel alive. She said grief made her ignore logic. I read the letter. I didn't respond. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. My dad drove down from Duluth and took me to dinner. We didn't talk about Vanessa. We talked about Daniel. About the good parts. The parts worth remembering. He loved you, my dad said, and he made sure you were protected. That's what good men do. I started sleeping through the night again. I stopped wearing Daniel's sweatshirt to bed. I washed it, folded it, and put it in the closet. I refinanced the house, got a lower interest rate, put my name on every document, every utility bill, every piece of mail. It's mine. Fully, completely, legally mine. Some nights, I still sit in the garage workshop where Daniel used to fix lawnmowers and listen to Cubs games on the radio. I don't do anything. I just sit there. It smells like motor oil and sawdust, and it reminds me that he was real. That we were real. People ask me if I'm angry. If I hate my sister, I don't hate her. I just don't think about her. She made a choice. She chose to use Daniel's death as a weapon. And when that didn't work, she learned the hard way that silence isn't the same thing as surrender. Last week, I found one of Daniel's old work gloves in the garage. It still had dirt on it from whatever job he'd been working the week before he died. I held it for a long time. Then, I put it on the workbench, where he used to leave his tools. Some people thought grief made me weak. They thought I'd be too broken to fight back. They thought I'd hand over my home just to keep the peace. They were wrong. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story hit you the way it hit me, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button and like, please.